So you mean to tell me on every single cross-border shipment has to have a commercial invoice to tell customs what's inside the box? What is a commercial invoice anyways?
Well,
Why do we even have them?
I mean, the customs needs to assess duties on a package. They need to know what's entering the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the commercial invoice is that document. It's that official agreement stating what is coming into the country, and so they can collect all of their monies.
So you mean to tell me on every single cross-border shipment has to have a commercial invoice to tell customs what's inside the box? Every single one.
I almost told you that, and then you reminded me that actually isn't always the case. Because what if you were sending these?
That's right.
Ooh, more
Documents.
Documents, right? So documents don't need a commercial invoice.
Yep.
But everything else, for the most part, that I can even think of, any reasonable shipment to any country in the world, you're going to need a commercial invoice. What's in there?
What's in the box?
Yeah.
Right?
What are the items? Okay. So now we're going from the shipment level to the item level, and this is where it gets tricky. So, talk to me, Aaron, a little bit about the fields for a single item. Let's just start with one item that are required on a commercial invoice. Okay, let's just talk about the fields, and then we can discuss what's required.
Okay. The basic fields are how many of each item. So what you'll have is you'll have lines that'll represent each item in the box. So you might have your hat, and then you might have your t-shirt, right? And that'd be two different lines. Here's my hat line, and on the hat, I'm going to say how many hats are there, and how do you measure those hats? Each it might be the unit of measure, right? Pair might be for a pair of shoes or something, right? But so there's different units of measure.
Like alcohol would be
you could have all sorts of units.
Volume. You could have a roll of something.
Yep. Yep. And so you have your quantity of that unit of measure, and you list both of those. You're going to have a description of the goods, and we can talk a little more about what that should be a little later. HS code.
Yep.
Country of origin. That's where the goods are manufactured. And the value. So you'll typically have the unit value. So for one hat, what's the value of one hat? And then you'll also have typically a total value for that whole line, which is if you have 10 hats and you multiply the unit value by 10, and that's your total value.
Okay.
Those are the most common fields.
Well, we're going to dive into some of those in a minute, but
which ones are required though?
Oh, okay. Well, it depends. And it depends on the value of the goods. If you go over, like in the US, right, like you have to, well, that's just the HTS, right, system where you need to get with an EI over 2,500. But when you're shipping with UPS or FedEx, it's not or DHL, it's not a required field for your harmonized code. It seems like it would be, but it's not.
I'd say everything on here is required except the HS code.
Yeah. Which
might be surprising for some, but you don't have to put an HS code on there.
Yeah. How truthful do you think people are with their country of origins usually? How good at
intentionally? I don't. How accurate are they? Let's use that.
That's
truthful. Truthful means that implies
that someone's being dishonest.
Yeah.
Versus how accurate are they usually?
There's oftentimes they're not accurate, and it could be innocent and not even knowing. Yep. I think people try to do the best they can with it, but
I've seen small shippers that are all over the place or just don't just put US on everything. And I've seen big shippers that do the same thing.
Well, sometimes they get confused because they think it's the ship from.
Yeah.
The country of origin. Where did the shipment originate from? No. Where was that product manufactured and made? So if I'm in the US and I bring in some goods from China and then I re-export them out of the US, I'm putting China as the origin of the goods. Why do we even have to describe our goods? Like, what's the point?
So there are two parts to it. One, it's for the HS code that you guys talked about earlier in an early podcast. And that is to help the customs agent at the border know what package you're shipping. So with this description, they should know what you're shipping, if it's restricted, prohibited, and then move forth.
Okay, sweet. So it's telling the customs agent what's in the box.
Yes.
Right? And then they can do HS codes, know if it should be coming in the country or not. Okay. But what kind of description should you have then? What's kind of the ingredients for a good description?
So the easiest way that I've always explained to people is if a human being were to read this, could they understand what it is? So put words like, instead of just a t-shirt, is it men's or women's or children's? Is it knitted or woven? What is the content? Is it cotton? Is it polyester? So have words like that. We don't need a lot of the SEO words because that will be a little too much. Like, I don't know, this children's ice cream colored romper, great for outdoor play. That's a little too much. We want just that it's a children's romper.
So keep it simple, keep it to what's relevant and nothing more, right?
Correct.
Like be to the point, someone that can read it without context.
Yes.
That's probably another key part of this is if they don't really have context of what's in the box.
Or who's shipping
but
it.
make it very simple and
Correct.
explicit and to the point. And then that way someone that reads it knows exactly what they're dealing with.
Yes.
What the heck is an HS code, Chanel?
All right. HS code's short for Harmonized System Code. And it's a set of standardized universal codes that are used by almost 200 countries to recognize and assign a code to every product being shipped in and out of countries. And countries use these codes to assign duties and taxes and apply restrictions and for other data purposes. And these codes were created and are maintained by the WCO, the World Customs Organization. And I think they started maybe in like the 1950s, and they make amendments and changes every 5 years, with the most recent one being in 2022. And up to the universal, the 6 digits, again, is recognized by almost 200 countries. But then beyond the 6 digit are country-specific codes, which are created and maintained by each specific country for further data purposes and restriction purposes. And that's a kind of high-level overview of HS codes.
What are some of the common pitfalls and things that you see with poor descriptions?
Well, so I've seen a lot, and I get a lot of unique ones too. Sometimes people think it is descriptive, like the color. The color, it describes what that product is, but sometimes the two unique ones will lead it astray, like the color you guys mentioned earlier, rum. There's also the color oatmeal. So if I said, hey, this shirt is oatmeal color, you'll know generally what that means. But if you say it's an oatmeal cup, how do you know what that is?
And you see this a lot, I think, in e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
Because these are descriptions that are being pulled straight from the website that someone in sales and marketing decided that they wanted to call the goods to catch a shopper's eye, but those descriptions aren't necessarily translating very well over to a customs description for an agent with no context to be able to read and understand what's going on. So it can cause some confusion, right? You've seen some confusion off of some of these descriptions, right?
So even colors that are not unique and it's common, like the color gold or silver, that we don't know if this cup is made of gold or if it's just gold colored. And that's a different classification than just this gold colored cup.
We work with a lot of companies that have a lot of line items, like say parts. Let's say somebody's ordering and they have like 10, 15 parts. I mean, I'm looking at this, this example of a commercial invoice. It's pretty small. It's, maybe that thing, can get really long though. What, talk a little bit about the customs clearance process once they start seeing a lot of line items, and how do they manage it? Does it cause them more work? And what's the implications?
Yeah. So the most important thing here is this is more of a cost-cutting measure, and this will kind of reference back to carrier fees that we talked about.
Great
previously.
episode 3.
Yes.
I think.
It's like Star Wars.
Yes.
Okay. But what they do is typically in e-com, a a lot of the carriers will give you, hey, 5 lines on a commercial invoice. That's just all included. But if you have a really complex entry, which is, let's say someone buys a whole bunch of parts for their car that they're doing a project on, and it turns into like 20 lines, they actually start charging a fee per line over the initial 5 or 6 that they give you.
Okay, what, like a few cents? Like, what do you mean per fee? A fee?
No, we're like $5-6 a line kind of thing.
Oh man,
yeah, it's expensive, really expensive. Now,
but if you think about it, there are, you have a broker involved that's having to look at every single line. Mm-hmm. It is not taking them a split second unless they're using, our AI classification tool or something. I mean, they're trying to really assess what the HS code is on every individual line.
Yep.
So it is time consuming for them.
And here's the other interesting thing. What they will often do is, if you kind of we've done this because we look at lots of different shipments as they're going through. We'll take the paperwork and look at it, and you'll see that they'll consolidate the lines for their own purposes because they're trying to be more efficient. So if they see a number of lines that look like the same kind of products, they'll consolidate them into their clearance forms to make it easier on themselves.
Do they pass that savings along?
Not so much.
Yeah,
not so much. And I will say that the additional line item fee, they're not very consistent about when they apply it, but when they do, it's really expensive.
Yeah, it can completely blow up the.
So if they're going to often consolidate those lines for you, anyways, why don't you just do it for them?
How could you do that? What do you mean? You can't just consolidate them? How
you can
add them all up
if it's the same kind of product. So if you got the simplest rule is, if it's got the same HS code and the same country of origin, you could combine them into one line. Yeah. So like if you got a white T-shirt and a blue T-shirt, right? That all are made in the same place. You could consolidate them into one line and say, quantity of 2, cotton T-shirt, here's your values, country of origin, China, and away you go. And then that turns the 2 lines into one.
And then if you're going over that line item, it can save you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And doing that manually takes a lot of effort. Zonos, we just consolidate it. I mean, if you're processing in our system, it'll just automatically, consolidate. What are some of the biggest mistakes you think people make when filling out a commercial invoice?
I mean, it comes back to the values we talked about. The most common mistakes are an inflated value on the commercial invoice in one way or another, like not putting the discounts on there so that way you actually see the full amount without the discount.
Yeah, if you have an order level discount, you better be careful because I bet you right now your commercial invoices are too high.
And if they reach out to the shopper and get an invoice that shows, oh, there's a discount, I'm going to be good and apply the lower value, it doesn't happen very often that way. So, that would be the big one. If your duty and tax calculations are based on a discounted amount, but then you're presenting to customs a higher amount, that's bad news. And the way that that can happen a couple different ways. But it's the discounts, but also if you're actually collecting duty and tax at checkout, that amount is a estimate of what's going to happen when it clears customs, right? We predict what that broker is going to assess on the value of the goods. But that's not part of the value that should go on the commercial invoice. And if that gets on there, that's going to also inflate the value that duty and tax.
How does that end up on there? Usually,
it'll often get thrown into the shipping line somehow, and it can create some confusion. And so all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to estimate duty and tax on the value of these goods in the shipping. And if that gets thrown in there, all of a sudden the actual duty and tax assessed gets applied to the duty and tax that you're estimating. And it turns into this inflated value, and
extremely expensive. I mean,
very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not doing, especially if you're doing duties and taxes paid, because now the person that's paying for that is you. Or if you're using our guarantee, right? We guarantee this. We have to make sure you're doing that right. So we're not paying for your mistake.
Yep.
Or having to invoice you back for your mistake. Because we cover everything but the controllables, right? If you can control doing it right, we don't. That's something. If you're shipping in our software, we're just going to take care of that. We would cover it. Let's talk about the declared value of these items. And so what happens, Aaron, when a shopper sends an email after their order and they're like, look, I know how my country works. Will you please just put $5 on the item price when you ship to my country to save me money?
And you know what? I bet every retailer that's been selling international for a reasonable amount of time has had a shopper ask this, right? But let's back up for a sec. The commercial invoice is a representation of the contract that you made with your shopper and the terms of the agreement on how much those goods were worth, right? That's typically the case of what that should. And we can talk about free items. That's a whole nother question. But so I'm gonna turn that around. So if you're telling me, hey, can you misrepresent the value I paid for those goods so that way I can save on taxes? What if someone asked you to go steal something for them? Would you do it?
Depends on. No, I would not.
I mean, it's a form of fraud, and so no, you need to be honest on the values that you put on the.
We had a early on in the business. I think we're like 3 years in, and there's a company that they didn't last very long with us. They sold knives, and we do work with companies that sell knives that are great, that are honest. And this company was reducing the amount of the value on every single order by like 80% of all of the knives. And we just got to the point where we decided not to work with them anymore. I think they were probably going to fire us too, because at the same time that they weren't pleased with us being like, you can't declare it this way. There's just, what goes around comes around. I think if you want to build a real good business, like just do it right.
Yep.
And last thing you want is to have something come back and haunt you in the future. So I'm excited about this subject now.
Did we talk about gifts?
Well, that's kind of part of the subject.
Okay.
Which is, no, let's talk about gifts first.
Okay.
Let's talk about gifts, and then we'll talk about discounts, which is the part that I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah. So real quick on gifts, let's just gloss over this. In general, what you have to have is a value for the products moving across the border. Now, when you're selling the products, you establish that value in your purchase agreement with the shopper, right? But now on gifts, that's not established anymore. So you really just have to put a reasonable value for those types of goods. And you can't put zero. That's the one other requirement. You can't put a zero value on a line item. It has to have value.
Even if it has value, does it get special treatment if it's a gift?
Yeah. In some countries, they have actually a different gift de minimis.
But it also depends on if you're shipping, like if it's consumer to consumer, it's going to be more readily applied that you're actually going to get gift treatment than if it's shipped from an actual retailer to a consumer.
Yeah.
So even if it's the same thing, like you're a retailer and you're shipping a gift to one of your, a family member from your company, it actually might not get the same treatment as showing up at ideally, if you want gift treatment, you're shipping post. Like I think that's probably the most likely place you're going to get the best gift treatment.
Really, the gift treatment and definition in these countries is really, I'm going to go back to my grandma, who's always generous, right? It's her sending me a gift. It's a consumer to consumer, personal kind of transaction,
right?
Without a business involved.
Yes. But a lot of people think of gifts. Like, hey, I'm going to do an employee gift. No, it's not a gift. That was actual, like, though you're giving it to them, it's a monetary exchange in a way. They paid for it with their services in a way. So I think that's why a lot of times you're not getting that same treatment on gifts. Let's talk about commercial invoice discounts. So we have an entire we have an entire doc just on what we've been talking about so far. What is a commercial invoice? Learning about commercial invoices. But this one we also have an entire doc written on, which is promo codes, free shipping, free items, all that kind of, buy one, get one free. So I kind of want to go through a few of these examples and use you as a sounding board as I kind of go through these. And okay, actually, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you questions. What's a good example
or a bad example?
Kind of, yes.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Buy one, get one free, right? So you have a Mars Attacks t-shirt that you're selling for $20 and you're giving one away for free. I'm buying that, by the way. That deal, I'm getting it.
Well, I know how much you like Mars Attacks.
So I'm going to give, yes, I do. So I'm going to give you 3 options. Option 1, you have a men's cotton t-shirt with a quantity of 2 valued at $10. Remember, the first t-shirt was $20. The second one was free. Or you can do a men's cotton t-shirt, just put 1 at $20. Or put 2 line items with a cotton t-shirt of 1 at $20 and another cotton t-shirt at $0.
On the second one, that won't work. You can't put a value at 0 anyways. But really, you bought 2 cotton t-shirts for $20 at $10 each.
$10 each.
That's the way I
so
go.
Consolidated the line items.
Yep.
Put a quantity of 2 at $10 each.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're doing good. You're doing good. Okay, I have a free item now, where it's not the same line item. This is different. It's like I'm going to give away with my Mars Attacks t-shirt today, instead of another shirt, a Jack Nicholson bobblehead.
Ooh.
Okay.
I want that bobblehead.
So that's free. T-shirt's still $20.
Okay.
I'm going to mix these up. All right. One option.
And I haven't prepped for this, by the way. So
one option is you list the men's cotton t-shirt at $20 and then a bobblehead at $0.
Okay.
So 2 lines. A men's cotton t-shirt, just 1, and don't list the bobblehead at all. Just don't put it on there. Or option 3, you have a men's cotton t-shirt at $15. And then create a reasonable value for the bobblehead toy at $5.
So not putting the bobblehead on the commercial invoice, yet still putting it in the box is taboo, right? The commercial invoice needs to represent the goods that are in the box. So I go with option 2 on that one, where you put a reasonable value for the bobblehead and pull that out of the value of the shirt. So 15 and 5, I think, is the values you use. That's the way I'd roll with that.
So you were 50-50 on that. You were correct in the description and bad on the option. That was option 3, but you got it.
Oh, was
correct.
that option 3?
That was option 3.
I think
list the bobblehead separately with a reasonable value.
Well, yeah,
1,
that's
2.
what I meant. 2 lines.
Are you looking at my notes?
No.
Okay. All right.
Line for the bobblehead at $5. Line
I have
for
a
the
promotion
t-shirt,
code
15.
now. Okay. So in this case, hold on. This one's a okay. I'm going to give $10 off an order with a $20 shirt and a $15 item here and a $5 item here, then $10 off the order, something like that. Okay. Option 1, you don't distribute the discount and you just put the retail value of all of them because, all right, so we're just going to put that as an option. You could just do that. Option 2, the items on the commercial invoice they only contain actual items greater than $0. And so in this one, you would just list the promo code as a line item. So you would say line item promo code $10. I don't know if I described that very well, so I'll just say it again to simplify because I think I kind of complicated it. The second option is I'm just going to put my promo code as a line item. And then the third option is distribute the discount, that $10 amongst all the items in the commercial invoice.
So this is a very real world problem. Order level discounts get tricky because you need that to then carry through your shipping software and onto the commercial invoice, and most systems don't handle this.
No, they're not
properly
going to do it well at all. No.
If it were me,
so most people are probably overpaying in this case.
Probably.
Which was option 1.
Yeah. Option 1. And maybe option 2 would come in where like the promo code throws up on the commercial. And you know what? That's better than option 1. Option 2 is better than 1 because now at least you can cross your fingers and think,
hope a broker.
I got a chance that maybe they're going to do something with this. But I prefer to not put too much on them and let me just tell a very simple story to the broker of what's going on. And I would take the value of the discount and distribute it across all of the goods. And I would do it weighted based on the value of the goods.
Yeah. So if you're, if the entire order, it's, let's say 10% lower because of that, it was a $100 order, you have an order level discount of $10, just to discount every item by 10%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it will reconcile. That's the ideal, but I agree with you. You could at least put the promo code as additional line and see what happens. But we don't have that as in our docs is our correct example. Okay, next one, samples. Right. Okay, I'm giving away a free sample. Right, some lavender lotion, and I'm not. That's all I'm doing. It's just a sample. There was no order here.
So this goes back to the kind of the gifts conversation we had earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, do I put 0 or do I put a value?
You have to put a value.
Okay, that was an easy one. Let's talk about free shipping, because this one's. Is there really such thing as free shipping? We had a conversation, I think, with a great company called Intuitive Shipping talking about free shipping, and it's not really free. So, but you can give free away to the consumer, and that was actually in them for the consignee that's paying for it. What happens, Aaron, if 0 is put on a commercial invoice? Let's start there. If you have 0 in the freight line on a commercial invoice, what can happen?
So let's clarify. It will allow you to put 0.
Yeah, you can.
And it will be fine some of the time.
Sometimes.
But when it's not fine, that's when you have problems, right? Which is
big problems.
If the broker says, I don't think so, I'm going to then come up with my own shipping costs. I've seen them use the published rates to assign a shipping value and then assess duty and tax on that. So you're playing roulette a little bit on that if you leave that 0.
Oh, this is super overwhelming, and I just need this to be easy. I'm an e-commerce seller. What do I do?
Technology.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, right? Technology. Now, there's shipping platforms out there that do a really good job of pulling in your data from, Shopify or Magento or whatever platform you're selling on. They pull it into their system and make it easy for you to pre-populate all this information. However, I will say most of them are not that good at the international side of things, especially when we're talking discounts and all of those things. They're going to be a little limited on functionality, but they'll get you 90% of the way there.
Aaron, this is where I do the shameless plug.
Please do.
Like, I do not know of anyone that is as good as Zonos at taking what happened at the time of the order, the e-commerce order, and transforming that appropriately for the shipment. And so if it's one integrated system where, let's say you're on Shopify, you're using our app, and we take the order, when you go to process the label and that commercial invoice is getting completed, it's going to appropriately do, pretty much most of the things we talked about today and fill out a commercial invoice. And it can be that easy. They're just getting it printed. Automatically create a quality description for AI. We talked about that in an episode. We're going to create a good description for you. We're going to automatically assign the harmonized code. We're going to help you manage your catalog and have the right country of origins always on the commercial invoice.
Discounts,
like consulting line items, through the list.
Putting the tax ID on when it's relevant.
Yes. Yep. Which is a lot of work in itself.